Go to the car. Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Great to see you all back on Sunday. What a great time together. We are thrilled that winter is almost officially over, technically speaking, a couple more days, but temperatures in the 40s today felt great. Looking at the spring, Easter's the first major point on our church calendar, and perhaps the most significant on our church calendar for the entire year. So wanted to bring about some special things concerning Jesus, looking at Mark's Gospel. This week we're looking at the first 3 chapters. And if you were here on Sunday, if you were able to hear the message, we talked about reading those kind of bold-faced subtitles right here that are in most of our paper Bibles to give us headings. And in some cases, if we just read the headings, we'd get, I'd say, a fairly limited view about what God is doing in its entirety. Yes, what's happening on these is true. There's the baptism of Jesus, temptation of Jesus, reading the subtitles of Mark 1. Approaching Mark 1:21, Jesus heals a man with an unclean spirit. Absolutely, that's what happens. But underneath that, there's a message, and it's a message about authority. That Jesus is coming in to his ministry and establishing his authority. So I'd love for you to pause and talk about what that means from your experience. When someone comes into your life and they're going to establish authority, what does that look like? You could talk about a family member, you could talk about a boss, you could talk about a spiritual leader, you could talk about a person in our governance or law system, so that we try to get some perspective. What do we generally feel and think, and what are we looking for when a person of authority comes into our life? And then we could take a closer look at Jesus. So let's do that now. Jesus tells us, Jesus tells his audience and describes to them the Word of God. He teaches them. And immediately they pick up, this guy's different. There's authority in what he's saying. And then in verse 27, people stand amazed at the practice. It's not just saying words, but it's the actions that Jesus does. So he casts out these devils who were in a man, this unclean spirit. We often talk about in pastoral circles that this is an example of the word and deed. That the signs and wonders follow the preaching of the word. The word is spoken, and then deeds follow. So Jesus later in Mark chapter 2 starts to spell out what particularly people should be looking for in him related to authority. Of course, they were dealing with authority in general. They were talking about whether it was lawful, legal to heal on the Sabbath. How crazy to think about it now. We would generally come to church and hope that someone would pray and that we'd be healed. But in this day, there was a sense of, no, we're not supposed to do any work on that day, and now a trap was being laid. But Jesus, skillfully just asked a simple question in Mark chapter 3 and verse 4. He said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or do harm, to save life or to kill?" So that in a way, Jesus is speaking to their particular issue about healing on the Sabbath, but I also think speaking to the bigger issue of, if someone's going to be authoritative and on the surface look like they're challenging the norms of life, what should we be looking for? What credentials should they have? What should their message be? What should their deeds be? And Jesus tells us very plainly, is someone doing good or harm? Is someone saving life or killing? And we should know people by their fruits. And judging people according to these criteria is probably a good place to start in thinking about who has real authority in our lives and how good is that authority. What's the quality of that authority? So Jesus gives us something to think about, and I'm going to ask you to, before you break out of your group, to pray for people who are in authority in your lives. Like I said, it could be your manager, it could be a parent, it could be a spiritual leader, it could be someone who's involved in your life in a situation, be it a financial one or a legal one of some kind, but they have authority in your life, and I want you to pray for them that they would exhibit good and that they would bring forth life. And I want you to pray particularly for our pastors. We try to do this on a consistent basis, but we ask for your prayers. I ask you also to pray for our national leaders, our international leaders, and that in this sense, as Christians, we would put our hope in the universal leader, Jesus Christ. I also ask that you pray that the Lord himself would show you his authority, that Jesus Christ would show you how authoritative he is in every manner of life, and that he's worth trusting, even if his version of life is different than the norms you or I were brought up in. Jesus Christ has been given all authority in heaven and earth. That's what Matthew 28 says. So he's one who not only we follow, but when we see his deeds back up his words, and then by his Spirit, all of that is confirmed to us. I ask you then to talk and then to pray. And if anyone has any other needs in your life, include those in your prayer time as well. God bless you in every way of your life. Have an amazing time, and enjoy spring. Break out those t-shirts, get rid of these sweaters, and put on your short pants.